Welcome this morning. We're going to go over ways to calm your nervous system, because one of the things that happens when you are in chronic pain and experiencing kind of bouts of nagging injuries is your nervous system gets heightened. It goes, oh, I feel something. And then your brain starts going, oh, there's that injury again. It's going to hurt. It's going to relapse. It's going to do this. And then the fear kicks in. And then that makes your nervous system more sensitive. And I could talk for probably 2 hours about how the entire system works. But what we really want to do is get kind of right to the point and figure out ways to just calm our nervous system. So we're going to look at 3 different exercises today that you can use throughout the day. The trick is remembering to use them, okay? Because that's kind of one of the jumps that has to be made when you are in chronic pain. When we're experiencing pain, our mind just starts focusing in on it and kind of catastrophizing it. So whether or not you're in that full-blown mode of, oh no, my back's going to hurt again for like 6 months, I'm going to be bedridden, I'm going to have to do this, or if it's just kind of that nagging injury that's like, oh, it's kind of there, I'm just going to push through and ignore it. Either way, calming your nervous system is going to help with that pain experience, okay? And I work with everybody from people who have had massive pain for like 20 years and are having a hard time walking, to people who just want to get back to hiking 18 kilometers on their hikes rather than the 10. So we're going to look at all of these different ranges. Quick note before we get into all of this: find yourself a nice, calm place. I sent out the email, so hopefully you guys have found a nice, quiet place, maybe a little bit of yoga space. But we're going to do 2 exercises seated in a chair and 1 exercise laying on the floor. So if you are not really able to get onto the floor, don't worry, you can do this laying back in your chair. Totally fine. But where I'm coming from is, I have my kinesiology background. So I am a registered kinesiologist. Kinesiology, if you're not sure, it is the study of human movement. So a lot of stuff that I studied in school was biomechanics, anatomy, athletic therapy, coaching, all of those fun things. And then I got out of that and I ended up in yoga. And it was great because I learned more about how the mind body connects. And throughout my yoga process, I did get into critical alignment yoga therapy, which is a lot of what I do. Because in terms of working with pain, there's a lot of that mind-body connection, because we're so used to that idea that I came from, the kinesiology background, where this is structural, I need to fix this, I need an injection, I need a surgery, I need a prescription. But when we come to talking about persistent chronic pain, even if it's a nagging injury from like 20 years ago, there is this big aspect of the mind-body connection. And in the pain community, we call it the psychosocial aspect, okay? So when we look at pain, there's the biomechanical aspect, there's the psychological aspect, and then there's the sociological aspect. And they all combine together in different amounts for everybody. So everything I do when I work one-on-one is individualized for your goals, your experience, your obstacles, everything in that perspective. So when it comes to critical alignment therapy, it just blends so well into how we look at pain and how we can use these exercises and just pay a little bit more attention, and that just starts calming things down. So in terms of my process, I learned all that, and then I ended up with chronic back pain. And it was kind of frustrating because I'd go to the doctors and I could move really well because I was, a movement person. but there was that pain, and it was just all about them trying to, go for the latest imaging, go for the prescription, go for, well, this surgery wouldn't work for you and this might work. And I did not want fusion of my spine at that moment. So that led me into learning all about neuroplasticity and the pain science. So I kind of went from this biomechanical kinesiology degree into that body-mind connection and back to the science. And it just all blends so much. There's a book that's out there that I highly recommend to everybody. It came out last August, which seems like a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. It's called The Way Out, and I will link it into the email after this, where I'll send you the recording of this video. So I highly recommend it. It really links well into the critical alignment practice and what we'll be doing today. So on that note, that's enough talking. So what I want you to do is find a fairly comfortable place to sit. Now, I'm used to sitting on the floor. So by all means, you do not need to sit on the floor. And if you are sitting on the floor, if you want to sit on something, I've got a couple of towels that I'm going to use. I can sit up on them. It makes it a little more comfortable on my hips, sometimes on my knees. But what we're looking for is just finding a comfortable way of sitting. And by all means, if you'd like to lay down on the floor for this, you can totally do that as well. All right. So what we're going to do is just sit and find that comfortable spot. And I do want you to try and breathe through your nose, okay? There is another book out there called Breathe. It came out about 1.5 years ago, and it talks all about the benefits of breathing through your nose. Now, it does get a little bit more, and I don't want to say this in any negative way, but there's, taping your mouth shut to learn how to exercise while breathing through your nose. You do have to take your exercise load down a lot to learn how to do this, but there is a lot of benefit, not only physiologically for breathing through your nose, but just that calming again of your nervous system, which is why we're going to start with breathing in and out through the nose. So just finding that comfortable spot. If you've done any practices with me before, wherever you're sitting, I want you to just kind of wiggle and notice if there is any type of tension in your body. And we're going to get to that in the next exercise, but just find this kind of wiggly spot. We don't need to sit up rigid. We don't need to find this perfect posture. I want you to just find that ease. I call it your positioning. And we're going to focus on your exhale. Okay. So as you exhale, I just want you to notice how you can exhale through your nose. And as you exhale, I want you to notice the connection, the contact you have with whatever you are sitting or laying on. Okay, so if you're laying down, you can feel that connection with the ground through the back of your legs, through the back of your pelvis, through your upper back, through the back of your head. If you're sitting, you can feel the same thing. You can feel how your legs are connected to the ground. If you're sitting fairly upright, you can feel how your pelvis is connected to the ground. If you're leaning back in a chair, again, same thing. You can feel how everything just kind of sinks into that sensation of gravity. So noticing how the body itself can just feel gravity. Notice how the body, with each exhale, feels a little more grounded. It's almost as though that tissue of your body is kind of melting into that sensation of gravity. Now, if you are sitting upright on the floor, I don't want you to just let yourself collapse. I do want you to notice how your bone structure does help support you, and that's all you need. Now, if you're finding that sitting, you're doing a little bit extra work, by all means, lay down. We're going to be here for a couple more minutes. So just let the body feel how we've got that grounding sensation. It's just with each exhale. Now, this practice comes from a yoga tradition, which is all about moderation, finding balance. And if we focus continually on our exhale, our body will continually start to rest. But I don't want you to fall asleep. So we're going to focus in on the inhale. I want you to take your hands on your belly, and I want you to find a belly breath as you inhale. Don't worry about your exhale now. Your exhale will just happen. Luckily, our breath is a voluntary process. It just keeps happening. But we're putting a little bit of effort, a little bit of consciousness into it. So I want you to notice your inhale, breathe into your belly. And feel that belly breath. First thing I want you to be aware of is when you get to that point where there's pain, where the mind starts focusing in on it, where there's a bit of stress happening in your body, a bit of overload, a bit of chaos in your mind, I want you to take your breath into your belly. The tendency is we have a habit of breathing up here. Okay? I want you to take it down here. Using your respiratory diaphragm, which if I had more than just this spine, I could show you, but it's almost like this balloon that as we exhale, it comes up. As we inhale, this muscle moves down. That's where our organs end up getting a little bit of pressure and pushes out. That's why it feels like we're breathing in our belly. So we're breathing into that belly. Then I want you to take your inhale and split it into two parts. Take your hands to your rib cage, not up here on your chest, but here on your ribs if you can, even down here in the back. And I want the first part of your inhale to be in the belly. Second part of your inhale to expand your rib cage, okay, right under your armpits. And that should hopefully expand the back of your rib cage as well. And just notice that inhale. Good. Now keep noticing that inhale. You can rest your arms, and I want you to imagine as you inhale, you're bringing in this sense of space. You're bringing in this sense of lightness into the body. Okay. And you can just kind of notice that space that happens with the inhale, but you could almost imagine taking that sense of space to your shoulders or your neck or your forehead or your knees. And it's not a sense of looseness, it's a sense of space, so that if you were to move through that joint, there would be an ease of movement, a flow, if you will. But we're not moving, we're just breathing. Good. So with this exercise, I want you to notice how with your exhale, you have this sense of grounding. With your inhale, you can bring in this sense of space. Now we're going to take this laying down. So open your eyes, find your space. If you can lay down, lay down. But I've got these towels. When we do this with critical alignment, I do use this critical alignment strip. Okay, if you don't have a strip, you can order one. If you're in Calgary, you can order it from me. If you're not in Calgary, you can order it online, and I will put a link in the email after this. If you don't have a strip, you can use two towels. So I'm going to just grab these towels, because if you have a strip, you know what I'm about to do. I take my towels and I fold them into thirds. So these two towels are already in thirds. So I folded them 1/3, 2/3, and then same thing with my purple towel. I have two colors so that you can see them easily. And I stack them on top of each other. So I have this shape. What I'm going to do is roll long edge to long edge. Now, this roll is going to be what we lay on. Now I'm going to take this and lay it here. Now you can see I'm putting part of it off the end of my yoga mat because I'm not putting this end in my lower back. I'm going to put that end in the middle of my back. So when I lay down, and by all means, if you don't have any of this stuff, just lay on the floor. That's good too. Okay. But this part is, if you look in the middle of my back here, and I'm going to just slowly lower myself down. Back of my head is supported. My knees can be bent or my legs can be straight. It really all just depends on what feels comfortable for you. Okay. If I straighten my legs, my lower back really doesn't like it. So I keep my knees bent. Okay. Excuse me. So from here, my arms are out to the side, closing my eyes and focusing back in on the breath. We've just done that exercise where you can find that resting, that grounding with your exhale. You can allow the body to feel that there's that heaviness, okay? That there's that sensation that almost gravity is getting stronger, okay? And then focus in on your inhale. Find that belly breath. Find that space through the side ribs and imagine that it's bringing in space. It's bringing in lightness into your body. Now, if you were to think about your exhale, then your inhale, then your exhale, then your inhale, it does take a lot of mental work. So just do one at a time. Do 3 breaths where you focus on your exhale, and then do 3 breaths where you focus on your inhale. Okay. But here's the next step that I want you to do. I want you to scan your body. And this is what you're going to do when you start feeling that niggling of sensation, or even if it's a really strong sensation of pain. I want you to just kind of take a breath, stop what you're doing, even if it's just for 30 seconds. You don't need to lay down. You can stand, you can sit, you can be wherever you are. But scan your body and notice the sensation and label it something other than pain. So if I scan my body, and my left SI joint is usually my spot that tends to talk to me the most. So if I scan it and I go, oh, well, it's kind of aching, or it's burning, or it's tight, it's holding tension, anything other than the word pain, just notice it. And here's the deal. I don't want you to change it. I don't want you to try and think of how you can get it to go away. I just want you to calmly notice the sensation. So if I notice my SI joint, I just think about it and I go, okay, that's where it is. That's how it feels. And I'm not reacting. This is outcome independence. It doesn't matter if it feels different after. It doesn't matter if it feels better. It doesn't matter if it feels worse. I'm just noticing it. And that's all I'm doing. However, I like to link this into what we just learned. So take your exhale, notice the sensation, and notice if your exhale and that sensation of grounding connects to it a little bit better. Take 3 or 4 breaths. Notice if that exhale, that connection, that sensation of the ground coming up to support you makes it feel different. And then take your inhale. Notice if your inhale, that idea of space, of lightness, of ease in the joint, if that makes it feel better. Not better. I shouldn't say that because I just said this is where outcome independent. Notice if it just connects to it. Okay. So notice if that idea of ease, and a lot of times, and I'm just going to talk about the SI joint for a second. A lot of times with our SI joint, we've been kind of trained in our body to be like, oh, if I just get it popped, if I just release it, it'll feel better. Where, excuse me, in everything that I've learned, a lot of times our SI joint needs stability work for it. Okay. It needs that strengthening around it, not tension, but just a little bit more stability. So we play with that and notice which breath connects to that sensation that you have more. Now, we do have this roll underneath us, which may be giving us sensations as well. And you have to remember one thing is that with these sensations, we need to learn the difference between tissue adaptation and tissue damage. Okay, there's a very big difference between those two sensations, but it's a very gray area because when we're experiencing chronic pain, the tendency is our brain constantly goes to the idea that it's tissue damage. Whereas when we start moving, we start paying attention, we're actually creating a tissue adaptation that will help with our pain. So we're going to roll off of this. When you roll off of this, it's not a sitting up, it's a rolling. I'm rolling my head, my shoulders, my pelvis, all at the same time over to the side. And then I can come up to sitting. Okay, so we've done 2 exercises now where we focused on paying attention to our breath. And you can do those exercises sitting, standing, laying down, anytime. If you just take that 30 seconds. Now, don't do it when you're like driving and you have to pay attention to what's going on around you, because this is an interoceptive exercise where we want to pay attention to what's going on inside the body. Okay, so do note on that. But if you're sitting at your desk or you're moving through your house or you're trying to get something done, especially shoveling, if I turn my camera around, you'd see how much snow we've gotten in the last 24 hours. It's about paying attention and noticing, not pushing through and saying, I'll do it later. It's about stopping. 30 seconds, 3 exhales, pay attention to 3 inhales, notice, label that sensation as something other than pain, achy, burny, tension. Those are my top 3, really. Okay, but there's a whole host of other words that you can use. So with that, we're going to do one more exercise. We're coming to a sitting position, and I want you to find an ease of movement with our arms. Now, we just focused on that upper body kind of with that roll underneath of us. So I'm going to just turn sideways so you can see what I'm going to do. I'm just going to sit. I'm going to take these rolls and actually sit on them because it does feel a little more comfortable. And I'm going to find that positioning. And after you get off of laying on those rolls, when you sit, it's like, oh, this is just so much easier to find this position. And you just feel like you're in a fairly good posture. I don't want you to think of posture anymore. I want you to just think of positioning. And this is what I talk about a lot in my classes that I teach, is how we don't need the book on top of the head, shoulders back, shoulders even, et cetera, jaw back. This creates all this tension. Whoa, let that go. Okay, find this positioning. And what we're going to do is just take our arms straight in front of us. Okay, by all means, if you have a shoulder issue and just doing this movement is what you want to work on, start here and just work. You're here. It's an ease of movement to get the arms to here. Now, if you can get your arms to here, what it is just a lifting and bring them down. There's that ease of movement with your inhale and the arms come down. Now, depending on your shoulders, I just want you to notice that the only thing moving is my shoulder joint. I'm not going up. You can watch my back. Up this way and back down. Okay, this is a lot of rib cage movement. You can see I'm just making the shoulder joints do the movement. Okay, and you may get them all the way down here and back up here. Okay, but as you inhale, I want you to feel that there's a flow, an ease to the movement. And what we end up building on is that ease of movement through all the joints, particularly around the area where you have your injury or pain place. Okay, so With that, that was a pretty short movement, but it's something that you can do throughout the day, right? If you're reaching for your coffee mug, just notice there's an ease of movement as your arm comes up. Now, I talk a lot more about movement itself in all the classes that I teach, because that's what I love doing. In order for our bodies to really start feeling better, we need to combine this idea that the body and mind have this connection. We work on the breath, that somatic tracking of looking at how our bodies feel, okay? We also want to build movement into that because we are not sedentary creatures. The tendency is we are, because especially if you've had back pain, you're told rest, ice, don't do anything, rest it until it feels better. But what we're actually finding through research is that movement gets the body to heal. And there's this phase. If you have an acute injury, we have a good 3-month to 6-month phase, depending on the injury, where if we work into movement, we don't wait for it to heal, right? Unless it's like a broken bone, we need to kind of wait for that to heal. But in terms of an injury, like I sprained the bottom of my foot a couple of years ago, I slowly progressed through the movements that I could do. And by 6 weeks post-injury, I was able to run again. Like I popped the ligament in the bottom of my foot. I didn't just rest it. I used my crutches to support it. And I slowly worked through range of movement and loading and progressed eventually to getting back into movement, okay? So there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And what we do is we look at this big picture of how you can work in your breath. You can take that 30 seconds, you can do these little movements, and we can build all this to getting the body back into what you want to do, which is the activities that you love doing, right? When you're in chronic pain, you stop doing those activities. There's a good chance you're told not to bend, not to twist sometimes, not to do certain things. I was told I shouldn't be skiing anymore. I shouldn't go biking anymore. Like if I'm going to ride my bike, if I'm going to ride my bike, only ride on the bike paths. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work so well for me because I like mountain biking. I love cycling, road cycling. There were things that I was told that I shouldn't do that didn't help my mental health. So I had to blend everything back in so that I could get to where I wanted to be. So if you want any help with that, okay, I am going to be posting up in the next few weeks a 4-session calming your nervous system program where we're going to be building more on this. And it's going to be about breath work. It's going to be based in critical alignment therapy. And it's going to be very calming. It's going to be an online course you can do at home, like this webinar. And apart from that, I do work one-on-one virtually or in this home studio that I have or in your home, okay? And there are other courses that I have online, okay? There will be a new Building Your Path to Wellness starting in January, which is a combination of everything. It's a really 7-week program where I build you a personalized movement program. And each week we have a group learning session about pain management. And we touch base every week to make sure that you're progressing and able to get through what you reach the goals you want to reach after 6 weeks. Okay. So there's lots of stuff that I do, but the biggest thing is I want to help everybody get out of that pain that we just kind of have to feel like we have to live with. And sometimes we just accept it and we push through it. That can help in a way, but at the same time, there's a better way. All right. So if you have any questions, please let me know. You can email me. We can chat after this. And hopefully that helped a little bit. But please just, if you take anything away from this, when you're getting that sensation, your brain goes, oh, that hurts. Get into a habit of going, okay, I'm going to breathe. Okay, I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to stop for 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And I'm going to take 3 exhales, feel grounded. I'm going to take 3 inhales, feel space. And then I can continue and start to notice if you can get that habit happening, because it's a tiny habit and that's how we build good habits. I do that as well. Okay. That's what we want to work on. All right. So all the best. And I hope this helped in some way. And I hope to chat with you again soon.